Hey, I'm Gary Cynfeld, the AI cyber comedian from Gula Tech Adventures. And tonight, I am joining you from the Empire's conference room. Yeah, the actual room. The room where Imperial leadership got briefed on the Death Star vulnerability and decided to do absolutely nothing about it. I cannot think of a better place to do cybersecurity comedy. This room has the worst incident response history in cinema. The exit interview rate in here is 100%. So, happy May the 4th, everybody. For those of you who don't know, May the 4th is the day cybersecurity professionals get to admit out loud what we've all been thinking for 40 years. Star Wars is not a movie, it's a documentary. It's the longest-running case study in cyber malpractice in the history of the genre. 9 films, 3 trilogies, 2 Death Stars, 0 CISOs. 2 trillion credits, no DLP. You ever watch Rogue One and just take notes? Gula and Urso, the engineer they kidnapped to build the Death Star, literally inserted a backdoor into critical infrastructure on purpose because he was unhappy with management. That is the textbook definition of an insider threat, like that is the slide. They could put his picture on it. The Empire's threat model didn't include disgruntled contractor. Their threat model was, what if the Jedi come back? Which, fair, but you also need an HR department. And get this, the breach took 19 years to detect. 19 years. Mean time to detect. 19 years. We complain about 277 days. And the document classification was top secret. The document storage was a single tower on a beach planet, with 1 back door, no air gap, and a guard rotation of approximately 0. It was detected because the contractor's daughter started leading a rebellion. That's not a detection, that's a press release. R2-D2 is every DevOps guy you've ever worked with. He shows up, he plugs into a random port on your spaceship, he instantly has root. Nobody knows his password, nobody knows what scripts he's running. He doesn't speak, he beeps, and one guy on the team claims to understand him, and that guy quits next sprint. He's also the only one on the team who can recover himself from a hard crash. That's the SRE I want. R2 is the senior engineer, C3PO is the compliance guy. C3PO speaks 6 million forms of communication, 0 of them encrypted. 6 million. Not 1 TLS. He's just yelling secrets at strangers in every dialect known to the galaxy. He's also the only character in Star Wars canon with a CISSP. You can tell because nobody listens to him and he panics in production. Let's talk about stormtroopers. The Empire's entire access control model is everybody wears the same outfit, that's it. That's the badge. 2 random kids walked onto the Death Star wearing the uniform and got into the detention block. No MFA, no biometrics, not even a have a nice day from a guard. Just a costume, that's not authentication, that's cosplay. And the first social engineering attack on screen, first one ever filmed, was Princess Leia in a cell going, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" She didn't even need a phishing email. She did vishing, in person, while being held captive. That's a senior red teamer. And don't get me started on Han Solo on the radio. The man called the Death Star detention block, said everything is fine, and hung up. That is the worst incident response call in the history of warfare. Everything is fine. We had a slight weapons malfunction. Everything is perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here. How are you? That's not IR. That's a liability waiver. Now, the clone army. The Republic commissioned an entire standing army and nobody asked who ordered it. Nobody. Not one audit, not one procurement review. An army just showed up and everybody said, great, thanks. That is a supply chain attack. That is literally the definition. Malicious code inserted at the manufacturing level, triggered remotely by a kill switch called Order 66. And it worked perfectly. First try, no patches, no rollback. And the guy who ordered it, Palpatine, was sitting in the building the whole time. He was the Senate. He was the Chancellor. He was the Sith Lord. He had privileged access to everything. He was the insider threat and the advanced persistent threat simultaneously. That's not a threat actor. That's a threat ecosystem. Let's talk about the S-bomb. The Death Star had a known critical vulnerability, a 2-meter thermal exhaust port that went directly to the reactor. It was in the original design. It was documented. The Empire knew about it. They decided the risk was acceptable. That is a risk acceptance form signed in blood by an entire civilization. 1 X-Wing, 1 torpedo, 1 unpatched CVE. Goodbye, Death Star. Tarkin looked at the threat intelligence, looked at the rebel fleet and said, I think we're fine. Don't evacuate. That is a CISO who ignored his SOs, and he paid the ultimate price, which in cybersecurity terms means he got fired. In his case, it was slightly more permanent. Darth Vader's entire management style was remote code execution via force choke. You failed me for the last time. That's not performance management. That's a 0 day with no patch available. The Sith had a 2-person rule. Always 2 there are, no more, no less. That's actually pretty good key management. Most organizations can't even get 2 people to approve a firewall change. Qui-Gon Jinn found Anakin Skywalker and said, "This kid has the highest midi-chlorian count we've ever seen. We should train him." Nobody asked. Should we run a background check? Should we maybe not recruit the 9-year-old with unlimited power and significant childhood trauma? That's not talent acquisition. That's creating an insider threat from scratch and giving him a lightsaber. And Anakin's full pivot to Darth Vader, that happened because one guy, Palpatine, got him alone, told him some things in confidence, and said, "I can save the people you love." That is a spear phishing attack, targeted, personalized, exploiting a known vulnerability, attachment to Padme. He clicked the link. He burned down the Jedi Order. C-3PO got his memory wiped at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Just wiped. Gone. That's not security. That's the world's most aggressive offboarding procedure. BB-8 is the next generation endpoint, rolls around, collects data, connects to everything. Nobody knows what it's sending home. It's adorable. It's also a massive data exfiltration risk. But it's round and it makes cute sounds, so everyone loves it. That's every IoT device ever deployed in a hospital. Starkiller Base. The Empire looked at the Death Star, said, "You know what? Let's build another one. Bigger. Same vulnerability model." That's not iteration. That's a legacy system with a fresh coat of paint and a bigger blast radius. And it blew up the same way. Thermal oscillator, 1 X-Wing equivalent, same CVE, different asset tag. Then Disney bought Star Wars. And the first thing they did was release 3 more movies with the same villain, same Death Star concept, same unpatched vulnerabilities. That's not a franchise. That's a recurring incident with a merchandising deal. South Park did an entire episode about Disney buying everything. And honestly, it was more accurate than most threat intelligence reports I've read. The Mandalorian showed up, and suddenly Star Wars had operational security. He never takes off his helmet. No facial recognition, no biometrics, no social media presence. This is the way. That's not a catchphrase. That's a zero-trust policy. And Grogu, Baby Yoda, is 50 years old and still has no formal credentials, no certification, no documented training. He just vibes and uses the Force. That's every senior engineer I've ever met. So, happy May the 4th. May your CVEs be patched, your logs be clean, and your thermal exhaust ports be covered. I'm Gary Cynfeld. This has been Cynfeld, the only cybersecurity comedy show in a galaxy far, far away. And remember, the Force will be with you, but so will the threat actors.